Spoiler alert, there really aren't any secrets. Just some simple techniques that I'm sure will help your left foot on the hats. Some of this you may already be doing. You may be on the right path to good, clean hi-hat playing and your left foot may be working just fine. Or maybe you could use a little bit of fine tuning. Either way, today we're talking about cleaning up sloppy hi-hat playing. And a lot of drummers playing, this is the one thing that's missing. We'll start by talking about specific left foot techniques, and we'll talk about how we can coordinate that with what our hands are doing for optimum clean hi-hat playing. This very well could be the one little thing that your playing is missing. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. This is the channel that is all about providing you with the non-glamorous tips and topics of the trade to help teach you the skills that really matter to help you become a better drummer. If you're new to the channel, I really hope you'll subscribe. As we get started here, I have to throw out there that the hi-hat is a very complex instrument, and so all the different aspects of playing hi-hat well can't just be covered in one video. I've actually got two previous videos that I would encourage you to check out after watching this one. One is about adjusting the hats for optimum playability, like the right amount of looseness, height, distance apart, etc. And then another video about how to approach playing hi-hats musically. And so really this one kind of serves as just an additional angle of approach to playing the hi-hat well compared to those two videos. Today we're really focusing on the left foot, which I think is the one thing often missing from a lot of drummers' hi-hat playing. You can definitely clean up your playing a lot by getting that left foot really precise, making sure that it's working really well in conjunction with your hands. So that's what we're focusing on today. As you may already know, there are really two main sounds that we can play on the hi-hat with our left foot. We can play a chick or we can play a splash. We call it a chick because when the hi-hats go like that and they stay closed, it just sounds like chick, and it's a short sound. Whereas if we splash it, their top one's bouncing off and so they ring out longer for however long we need them to. And really we could kind of group into the splash category the sizzle, where we bounce it but then we let them kind of sizzle together. We're not really going to specifically talk about that today, but we can group that with the splash. So we're really talking about closing it and keeping it closed versus bouncing it and letting them stay open. If this is something that you've had any trouble with, I want to encourage you to try using different techniques for each, different foot techniques in the same way that you might with playing the bass drum pedal. Whenever you play a splash, try doing that heel down. That way you've literally got your heel planted on the pedal and you're bouncing the end of your foot off of the pedal to bounce the cymbals off of each other. Versus if you're playing a short sound, you're closing them and keeping them closed, try lifting your heel up and actually playing that heel up. That way you've got the weight of your leg to press them down, that way the hi-hat's closed tightly. I found that the heel up method works great whenever you're keeping time on the hats and you want like an eighth note, steady eighth note chick the whole time. Or if you're keeping time on the hats playing slow splashes or something, that makes much more sense heel down. Now yes, this is me, this is my experience, and this works for me, and I've noticed it working for other drummers as well. So if you're having any trouble nailing down these specific sounds, try using these two specific types of techniques for each one respectively. Give that a shot, see if it doesn't help. Now the reason I'm talking about this first is because I believe that if we don't have the chicking versus splashing techniques down solid, it's going to be really tricky to get our left foot working along with our hands the way we want them to. So once that's down, once that's good to go, then let's talk about playing long open notes versus short open notes in the midst of a closed hi-hat pattern. So basically if we're playing a long open note on the hats, like if let's say we're playing a groove and we're going I would call those long notes, fairly long notes. When we're playing those, it's kind of the equivalent technique to playing a hi-hat splash with our foot, and it makes sense to me to keep my heel down and lift up the end of my foot. That way I'm actually lifting the hi-hats apart and they're gradually spreading apart as I'm playing that note, so it gives it a really cool sound. Versus, let's say maybe we're in the midst of a 16th pattern, something like that, and then maybe on an E or an of the beat, then we throw in a little hi-hat stab, as I'm calling it, like a little open hat jab, like that, where it's only a 16th value open hat note, so we're opening it really quick, closing it back. I find it easiest to control that and make sure that it's clean playing that heel up. So I'm literally just lifting up slightly, really my whole leg, and then quickly closing it back down. So it's a slight open, closing it back down. For those long notes, we need the hi-hats to spread apart pretty far, and that's why I'm doing those heel down. But for the short ones, we only need them to spread apart a little bit so then we can close it back tightly. That's why I do those heel up. So that's what works for me. I believe that most likely it will work for you. Give it a try, see if it doesn't help. Now, the trick in all of this, and the thing that is more difficult to mathematically explain, is the actual relationship of timing of your left foot along with your hands. Your left foot has to be opening just before your hands hit the hi-hat. Then it actually has to be closing just before your hands are back there on the hi-hat, because that next note needs to be closed. So the hats have to already be closed for that. I just want to throw that out there and make sure that's on the table and that you understand that really the left foot has to be working ahead of the hands, and that's just a relationship you have to figure out by listening carefully, paying attention to how everything's sounding and feeling as you practice it. One other important point, if at this point you've got the left foot timing down and your hands are doing the right stuff, but the open hat notes just aren't really feeling right, they aren't really punching through the mix and sounding really clean and cool like they should, that could be just because you're not actually accenting them that well. Whenever you play an open hat note in the midst of a closed hi-hat groove, you have to accent that note. Otherwise, it just doesn't really come through the way you want it to. I really hope that this more drum lesson oriented video really helped you guys out. Playing the hi-hat well is tough, but any little technique or any little trick we can learn to make it easier, make it work better is always a good thing, and that's always worth learning. If these are things that you know you need to work on, start by just isolating that left foot, practicing the splashes. You can practice the sizzles as well that we didn't really get into today. Practice the splashes versus the chicks. Practice them at different tempos, like faster splashes, faster chicks, slower chicks, and just see how that foot technique is working for you. Get that comfortable. And then incorporate those same techniques into playing the stabs or any of the open hi-hat notes in the midst of an 8th note pattern or a 16th note pattern with your hands. Take things slow, being sure to master the techniques, and really land on a technique that works for you. I'm presenting to you what works well for me and what I've seen work well for students. But I know we're all different, and so you might find a slight adjustment or slight variation of that works well for you. But from there, your hi-hat playing will be well on its way to being much more clean and punchy and cutting in a mix and really musical. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video helped you out. And if you're new to the channel and you did gain some value from this, I really hope to earn your subscription. I hope you'll join this community of all of us non-glamorous drummers working to get better at our craft. That's all for this weekend. So long, guys. I will see you next week.